So in this video, I will be talking about my model for couples and family therapy and also how I'll use this model to assess a client, conceptualize their case, treatment plan, and also begin treatment. So for the beginning, for assessment, I like to pull from cognitive behavioral techniques with individuals. So cognitive behavioral couples therapy is also something that I pull from. In the Sexton and LeBeau text, it says the important role that cognition plays in relationship distress is based on the premise that dysfunction occurs when partners maintain unrealistic beliefs about their relationship and make extreme negative evaluations about the sources of their dissatisfaction. CBC techniques, CBCT techniques are beneficial because they pull from cognitive assessment and intervention methods that are normally used in individual therapy, but they adapt them for use with couples to help them identify, modify the distorted and inappropriate perceptions, inferences, and beliefs that their partners may experience about one another. CBCT methods are also used to decrease negative couple interactions and enhance mutual emotional support. With CBCT, questionnaires and self-report measures are primarily used as means to gain information about family members as well as couples, and then they're typically discussed in the second session. CBCT has roots in several sources that lead to its development. They include behavioral marital therapy, basic research on social cognitions, family systems theory, research on how emotions affect cognitions and behaviors, stress and coping therapy, as well as integrative therapy models. Another method that I plan to pull from is the Gottman method. The Gottmans use the 7-relationship house theory, and for assessment, the Gottmans have a questionnaire. It's 5 sections, and it talks about a variety of things from friendship and intimacy to individual areas of concern with sadness and depression, the role of conflict. It addresses intimacy, as well as feelings of negativity. And lastly, the transgenerational model of family therapy. Now, this is beneficial in working with families because it focuses on homeostasis and adaptation. Adaptation is what designates the ongoing change of family structure in response to needs generated by its own evolution. Now, when working with families, family dynamics are important to take into consideration because each generation builds upon the other. So for instance, if you have a couple who is having conflict with blended families, having stepchildren, or just child rearing, a lot of the things that were used when they were growing up are things that they're going to model as well. So getting an understanding of how multi-generational values and beliefs kind of transpire down the line. And with family therapy for assessment, genograms are typically what's used so that you can capture the dysfunctional patterns or the positive patterns, as well as being able to see the lifelines, the themes, and things that coexist. So with case conceptualization, you have to do a thorough assessment. Make sure that your assessment measure talks about the client's problem, as well as doing a comprehensive outlook of the client's history to begin treatment planning. Treatment planning, although at the beginning you want to focus on why they're here, treatment planning is something that begins at the beginning. It's something it's ongoing. And when you conceptualize your case, You want to include environmental, cognitive, emotional, behavioral, and spiritual factors that may play a key role in the development of the couple or families presenting symptoms. Case conceptualization can be used as a rationale for therapy or for the use of a specific treatment task. The next thing would be the treatment planning. So before you can do a treatment plan, you have to have an accurate DSM-5 diagnosis. You also need to make sure that you're collaboratively working with the clients. The book by Gehart, Mastering Competence Using Family Therapy, is a good resource for treatment planning and case conceptualization. It starts off with a chart at the bottom that talks about treatment planning, and then it goes into the treatment plan with goals and interventions, the working phase of client goals. After you select the goal type, then you go down to treatment tasks. And then in this one, it also talks about considerations for diversity, looking at age, gender, race, religion, class, and then other factors. And it also includes an optional client perspective. So being able to give the client autonomy and see how they feel about it, a lot of things that are going on that they present with. Another method for treatment planning is to refer to some professional resources. The first one would be the Couples Psychotherapy Treatment Planner, and the next would be the Family Therapy Treatment Planner. And so these treatment planners have not only the definitions of several problems, but they also include short-term goals, long-term goals, therapeutic interventions, homework assignments that can be used. And especially for beginning therapists, it's a good resource because it gives you a lot of the information that you want to have to start off with. So one of the Gottman's handouts that talk about assessment tell you that the first step is to conduct the assessment of the current household by examining communication patterns, behavioral sequences, the affective levels, subsystems and structure, any issues with triangulation, distribution of power, forming boundaries, or the family's overall problem-solving abilities. The next step is to do genograms, but make sure that at minimum they're 3-generational, and they include step family members if applicable. Step 3 will be to conduct an assessment of other households. Ask about legal custody, get documentation if possible. If children are identified clients, try to communicate with the parents and step-parents initially. But you also want to make sure that you do include the children and hear their concerns as well. Step 6 is to recognize what stage of integration the family is in and let it inform who you see within the family. Be sure to control chaos that comes from the super system. Encourage appropriate naming, no pushing. Step 9 is to assess people's interpersonal skills and ability to emphasize with each other and to express themselves effectively. Conduct preliminary psychoeducation about the need to contain expectations, the need not to push or run away, and the need for the step-parent to stay away from the disciplinary role initially. So with this information, in the next 2 videos, I am going to work with a pseudo couple, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that were discussed in this video. So number one, it's doing an assessment. It's how do you gain information to help support the presenting problem. And for me, it would be administering the Gottman questionnaire. In terms of questionnaires, there are various ones. With the Gottman questionnaire being more of a homework assignment, there is a sample questionnaire that I pulled, and it has questions that say, what are the reasons you're consulting as a couple at this time? What do you expect out of this therapy? What are your goals? And then it's recommended to follow up with the history of the current relationship. How long have you and your partner been together? What was the beginning of your relationship like? What are things you like about your relationship? What are 3 things you wish to change? What makes you feel frustrated? And that helps with the boundaries and power struggle if ones exist. The next session would be on relationships and family history. It's how would you describe the home you raised, and that's where genograms will come in, where you try to find the intergenerational patterns and themes. Describe your relationship with both parents, and then describe your parents' relationship with each other. It's important to know whether or not the clients grew up in a single parent home, they're part of a blended family, if it was a same-sex marriage. All of those can have effects on how they parent and how they view their current relationship. There's an important section about handling conflicts, and that's also included in the Gottman questionnaire. This assessment measure asks, how often do you argue? Are fights and arguments destructive to your relationship? What do you do when you're angry? How does your partner respond to you being angry? How long do you stay mad at each other? There have been any incidents of physical violence? Has there ever been infidelity? Of course, there is a section on intimacy. Are you sexually active? Are you satisfied with your sex life with your partner? Do you communicate well? How open are you in expressing your innermost thoughts? Social and recreational activities you engage in as a couple. Joint commitments to goals, projects, work, etc. And then, of course, giving the couple an opportunity to ask any questions or to gain clarity, or if there's anything that the assessment did not touch on that they may feel is pertinent to their session. So again, this was a sample of an assessment questionnaire, but for the next video, the questionnaire that I will be administering will be the Gottman's questionnaire. In chapter 13 of the Gearhart text, does really good of laying out the basic steps. So when you're beginning and you're having concerns about doing an assessment, it maps out all the steps, things to ask for, things to be aware of. It depicts what some red flags may be. It also gives help with writing goals. You want to make sure that your goals when treatment planning are SMART, meaning they're objective, they're measurable, and definitely collaborative. Really want to make sure they're relevant to what the client says and not just what you have found in a therapy book or something that you think is what they should work on. For the purposes of the following 2 videos, I did not have the clients go through the informed consent process because they knew this was a class assignment and they volunteered to be open and honest and vulnerable. In most sessions, that definitely has to happen in the first session, but for the sake of time, most of the assessment phase was omitted. So, in closing, video 2 is the application of an assessment measure to a pseudo couple, and video 3 is diving in depth to the problem identified during the assessment phase.